Hey, hello, good evening, or maybe it's not, maybe good afternoon, even good morning, because we are, of course, in a webinar mode and we have a worldwide audience, hopefully so. Anyway, I don't know where you're located, but located in a dark London, dark because it's 30 in the evening. I hope you have a fine, sunny, and not too cloudy environment. But of course, the topic for today is cloud. This is a webinar about cloud. It's part of a series. This is part 2 of 3. And this is called, how can you navigate a career in cloud? Well, hopefully that's something that you've been thinking about. Certainly we're hoping for lots of good participation from you in the audience. So do think about your questions and pop them into the chat and we'll try and cover them as we go through. My name is Darling. I'm in the very fortunate position of being the chairman of 3 great groups in BCS, the Chartered Institute for IT. And the groups are 3 London groups, London North, Central, and South. Great bunch of people, and I'm really proud to be with my fellow volunteers in terms of addressing all the numerous topics that BCS covers. And I've got a number of those colleagues here with me today. I'm joining them, in fact, and they include Rashik, who is our current CEO. But much more of that in a minute. The topic for today, again, is cloud. So make yourself comfortable and let's begin. Over to you, Martin.
Thank you very much, Darling. Thank you for the introductions and the overview. So, as Darling said, our topic for this evening is cloud careers, how to navigate a cloud career. I don't really think that's a sort of an introduction or a topic we need to expand on. So I thought what we do is meet our panelists, but meet them initially with a small challenge. As Darling said, this is the second of 3 cloud webinars that we're doing. So what I thought I'd do is ask each of the panelists to introduce themselves, tell us a little bit about their career, but also just give us a very small snapshot, a summary of how they define the cloud, because that was the topic of the first webinar. So Christine, maybe you'd like to start, introduce yourself, and what does the cloud mean to you?
Oh, hello everybody. I'm Christine Ashton, and I'm the CIO of SuSe. And you know, like many people, I've been working with cloud for probably a couple of decades now. And, you know, as a CIO, I've been involved in business transformation, restructuring, you know, moving high performance compute to the cloud. And to me, cloud is an enabler, in a word. In one word, it's an enabler. And it's about enabling outcomes that have intrinsic value. And that's whether it's about creating burst capacity for, you know, Black Friday orders or Christmas, or whether it's about buying it in a form of services. And, you know, for me, it also means that by being an enabler, it enables us you to get to business results faster, and also helps potentially buy the services that can be commodity service. That means that you get to focus perhaps on the things that differentiate you. So in a word, I would say an enabler.
Enabler, brilliant. Thank you very much, Paul. Again, you know, maybe introduce yourself, and again, what does cloud mean to you? How do you define it?
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Hi, everybody. My name is Paul Williams. I am a technical lead at Google Cloud and also a member of the BCS Influence Board. And so I'm here joined by my colleagues from the FTAG, Rashik and Christine, to talk about this concept of cloud and what careers look like in cloud, right? So when I'm asked to define what cloud is, the first thing that always comes to my mind is, oh, it's just somebody else's computer, right? There's this ethereal thing that is cloud. But actually, Christine, I think your term enabler is fantastic. I would possibly take it even a step further and say it's opportunity. Cloud gives businesses, enterprises, developers opportunities that they wouldn't have had before. They have access to masses of compute resource, graphics processing resource, AI resource that just was out of the reach of most businesses and corporations before cloud became this phenomenon that it is right now. So for me, cloud is opportunity.
Brilliant job. Lovely. Thank you very much. So Rashik, we've got cloud as an enabler and an opportunity. Why don't you introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about your career, and again, maybe just build on that definition.
Sure. Hey, so Rashik, Parmar, current group CEO of the British Computer Society, and all the rest of the blah stuff, which I'll forget for now. And yeah, over the last 39 years where I've been an IT professional at IBM, we've focused on cloud for the last 20 or plus years. And for me, cloud is about removing the routine aspects of IT life and allowing IT professionals to focus on the fun, interesting parts of the job. And it really allows you to turn innovation from an idea to reality, and gives you the tools and techniques to be able to provide you the reach, the range of services, and the revenue that you need so that you create the outcomes that the businesses care about. Brilliant job.
Brilliant job. Thank you very much. So I think we've really only got one more piece of housekeeping before we start with the sort of Q&A session, is to say that we really would like the session to be as interactive as possible. The first section, we had a session of these, we had some really great questions. So please type them into the chat. Our colleague David Grundy will pick up those questions. I'll hand over to him at the end, and the panel will address your questions. But as I say, please ask your questions. But moving forward, so the first question, do my news readers tap with the paper. The first question I think we talked about when we began sort of sketching out how this webinar might work was the idea that it's actually really difficult to have a kind of an IT career that doesn't in some way kind of touch the cloud. I guess maybe if you're thinking about writing drivers or firmware or something, you can kind of ignore the cloud. But to start with, why is the cloud such a defining force across IT careers? Why should anybody serious about their IT career be serious about the cloud? So Paul, maybe you'd like to lead us on that one.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd actually like to challenge a little bit of what you said there. You think even if you're thinking about writing drivers or firmware, well, actually there's specialties and niches in that around the cloud, right? So new devices, new sort of architectures are being built all the time, and cloud is I'm not going to go as far as to say it's a unique situation, but it's a situation where we need innovation and we need sort of new inventive ideas around these areas of even things like drivers and firmware. So I don't think it can be escaped, right? It is a defining force across IT in the sense that it provides just this incredible amount of flexibility to businesses and companies and corporations, and even down to like individual developers. I remember when I first started developing, if we either had to run something in our prod environment or our dev environment, because that's what we had. The concept of being able to spin something up for myself that's a replica of our production environment, spin that up, test something and spin it down all within the space of an hour and be billed a couple of dollars for it was mind-blowing. And so the flexibility and the opportunity that it provides is so game-changing. And I've seen that through some of the work that I've done in consulting with other companies. The concept that we can bring something down from a week-long database query down to something that executes in the time it takes to drink your cup of tea is fascinating, and it's revolutionary to a lot of very key businesses that rely on some of these older technologies. So you need to be serious about cloud because it's where people are going. It's where the opportunity is. It's where the flexibility is. It's where the resource is. Yeah, I think that sums it up.
No, that's a fantastic summary. So maybe Christine, you'd like to talk to us on about that point, about why cloud is such a force across careers.
I think the thing I would say is that it's important to think about cloud. It's just not one thing. So cloud is embedded at every layer of the IT stack, right? From security, infra, applications, service, all the way up. So, you know, it's there with us, whatever we're doing at all those levels, right? And, you know, and I think that no matter what your passion is, if it's security, applications, infrastructure, like I say, then cloud will feature in that. I think the other thing is, even if you're not a technologist, cloud features, you know, because it's this massive change agent. When I look back at some of the things I've been able to do in terms of transforming businesses and getting people to think differently about how they transacted business processes, you know, cloud was there as an enabler of that, and as something that enabled people to redesign their jobs differently, you know, and you know, the economic planets, the macroeconomic planets that are around us at the moment, inflation and all of these things, are forcing businesses to think differently about their businesses. They're forcing businesses to think differently about the adjacent markets they could go in, and encouraging businesses to think about how can they do and transact their business processes that means that they can service more customers and cross-sell and upsell to customers. So it's kind of everywhere, right? And the more we understand how it links just not in making IT more productive, but business more productive, then I think that's super important. I do think that, you know, with careers, it's not just about cloud, it's also about thinking through all these tools we've got to help deliver change and transformation. And for me, cloud is just something that we should just regard as fundamental in our arsenal, as it were, you know.
Brilliant. Yeah, really interesting idea. I mean, I just sort of reflect on my own career as a journalist, and when I started off working on magazines, how tethered to place we were, how tethered to paper we were. You know, it was a team of people in one location generating paper on, you know, on a network, and now we produce them, and you know, our team are all, you know, kind of all over the sort of Wiltshire, really, and it's all done in the cloud using various tools. But Rashik, over to you again. So why should we take cloud so seriously?
Yes, so the way I think about this, Martin, is we as an IT industry have been focused on digitizing aspects of human life, aspects of processes and systems, and you know, and pretty much anything we can. That's what our raison d'etre is, and so that digitization starts at the simple level in just using one computer to do that digitization, and then the complexity gets to a point where it starts to become too hard. And that's really where cloud takes over, because you start to provide structure and discipline around some of those things. You start to drive automation of how you run those different sets of pieces. And cloud gives you the tooling and technology to really step up how IT works from being a kind of cottage industry to an engineering practice, right? And as you start to become an engineer and you start to think about the world of IT as an engineer, you very quickly start to realize what it's all about, cloud, right? And so we from the BCS talk about we need competent, ethical, accountable, and inclusive professionals, right? And they really are the individuals that will drive the next era of digitization, as we talked about earlier. And so I think if you want to do something which is even slightly future-proofed, or start to create the kind of enable the latent potential in Christine's words, I think you'd be touching on cloud. And it's about understanding the range of services that you can draw on, because there's this ever rising line of commodity. So once somebody's done something, when they've done it for the first time, that's when it's unique and special and exciting. The second time, it's a repeatable asset. You need to try and put it in some kind of shared library we can pick up, and that shared library should be something that can be instantly launched in some kind of cloud platforms that everybody can use it, and it becomes almost something that's available to everybody, unless there's some unique special value which somebody wants to protect it and put IP around it and all those kind of good things. But largely, I think the componentry that's out there is in pieces that we can leverage, and I think the other piece that we've got to think about here is just because we can doesn't mean that we should, and there needs some guardrails around where we should apply these things, right? So I always come back to the question of, should we continue mining bitcoins, right? because you can do that in the cloud. But is that an appropriate use of technology? And everybody's come back and say, well, as long as there's value in it, we're going to do it. Absolutely agree. But is that really applying the expertise and professional capabilities and resources to address some of the things that we need to, or should we be applying it but in a better place? So yeah, I mean, big answer, but that's really where cloud is everywhere, and as a result, the answer is everywhere. And the best phrase I had was from Julia Adamson, where she was recounting a phrase that one of the professors at Cardiff used, which was, cloud is really like glitter, right? It gets everywhere, and once it gets there, you can never get rid of it, right? And so it's shiny and cool and exciting, but it is a bit annoying sometimes as well.
Fantastic. Big, gets everywhere like glitter. Wonderful. I didn't see that one coming, I have to say. Well, let's change gear a little bit now, because I think we've probably all been watching the budget, working out how much poorer we're going to be today. So I'd like to talk a bit about sort of supply and demand, really. So what are the cloud skills that organizations prize the most? And I guess kind of not everybody really, I guess, wants to be a rock star. So what are the core cloud skills and pathways, to be blunt, you know, in a way? What are the cloud skills that are going to put bread on the table? How can we pay our mortgages using cloud? Maybe Christine, you'd like to sort of lead us on this one.
Yeah, I think it's quite interesting to segment this, because, you know, if you think about it, even if you're in the cloud, organizations still have the basic need to be secure and compliant, right? So, you know, in terms of the types of skills to earn money by, you know, really understanding cloud and understanding the complexities about its security, understanding maybe how you can secure it when it's multi-cloud, and really getting into some of the things that, no matter how we modernize, many things still say the same. And like I say, you know, understanding your presence on the cloud, understanding how much it's costing you for that presence on the cloud, those are still the core things that you would want to do. And so I think anybody that was really interested in not just static security, you know, because as we were just saying, we can work from anywhere, we can do anything from anywhere. So really get into the nub of the types of security and the, let's call them the user stories, for want of a different word, that organizations are really in need of. So almost at one level, I would say things like security, developers, we all love developers, but, you know, somebody has to watch what they're up to and what they're spending. And, you know, so having a viewpoint, like you would manage and monitor any resource, thinking about how you're consuming cloud. And there's new roles emerging, you know, people that help companies to understand if they've bought a plan of one of the hyperscalers, be it Google or Amazon or whatever, that actually you're consuming it against that plan. And those are quite interesting, like cloud accountancy type roles, you know, they're quite interesting. And, you know, in our business, we manufacture operating systems, we manufacture, you know, Kubernetes and techniques and tools that help people to migrate to cloud and operate their businesses better in the cloud, and also to work at the edge. And that's something we've not talked about. So I think it's also about understanding the things that are still going on. Cloud hasn't matured. People are still transitioning to it, so that our roles, years ago, you know, we used to call it migration, and that still works the same today. So migrating services to the cloud, projects, businesses. So anyone with those sorts of skills is massively going to be in demand, right? And then as you come up the stack, you can see where I'm going with this. You know, years ago, we perhaps built a lot of customization into systems, and we understood them if it was big ERPs or HR systems or whatever. But we still need folks that can understand the business processes that are in the cloud software as a service type products that can help businesses not just migrate to them, but leverage them. And cloud doesn't stay the same. So again, we need roles that are about how do you keep it up to date? How do you do the equivalent of putting new updates live, et cetera, et cetera. So a lot of the things stay the same in a way, but have got like a modern face to them, like security, change control, release management and stuff like that. But other things allow us to innovate. You know, how can we rethink our business processes? So I think the things we've always been brought up with are still true today, which is really getting into the nuts and bolts about what creates value in your business, where the value gets transformed along a value chain, and starting to look and hone our skills to delivering in some of those areas is what I would say.
Fantastic. So we've got the old, the new, don't lose sight of the business. Paul, to you, what are the most sort of valuable cloud skills that we should be looking to hone and develop?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll clarify, I'm speaking quite generally here. I'm not speaking on behalf of any particular organization that I associated with, but the key word that kept coming out from Christine there was this concept of understanding, right? And cloud is this toolbox. It doesn't matter which vendor we're talking about. It doesn't matter which platform we're talking about here. Cloud offers a whole set of tools to, I can't say any situation, but the point I'm making is that there is a wide variety of tools for a wide variety of situations. And so someone with the skills to be able to come in and say, okay, these are, identify the business problems and identify tooling that can help to resolve those problems in the right way. There isn't a one size fits all solution to anything. There never has been, and I don't believe there ever will be. This is why we have the cloud toolbox. So the concept of things like transferable skills is extremely strong in cloud. Someone that's used to analyzing business process, someone that's used to change management, culture change, all things like that, definitely have places in cloud teams, because even if we're talking purely about engineers, they're going through a culture change when they change from something on-premise to on cloud. If we're talking about an entire business moving to some sort of software as a service offering for their HR system, for their finance system, there's even wider impact there than just an engineering team. And so this concept of change and culture management and this concept of migration management hasn't gone away. It doesn't change, and that still needs to be looked at. And honestly, in a lot of the companies that I've sort of consulted with and worked with on this, bringing in a change management specialist is often one of the most impactful things that we've done. So possibly a little bit of a sort of a side swipe at the question there, but I think it's so key to remember and I'm not a fan of the term, but the soft skills around it, right? This isn't just about clicking the buttons and setting it up. This is about actually being able to use this every day and to use it effectively every day. And that's where I see a lot of businesses really benefit from that sort of skill set as well.
Interesting. It's interesting that you talk about soft skills. So let's talk about sort of operational career pathways now. And what advice would you give to somebody who really enjoys the sort of the engineering side of the sort of the making and the doing? Rashik, maybe you'd like to sort of kick us off on that one.
Yeah, and actually there's a question from Tola that's come through, which is very close to this. And the question here is, how can you move from a service desk role to a cloud role, like cloud engineer, cloud support, etc.? Do you need certain qualifications? And really building on what Paul said and Christine said earlier, the way I think about this is there are three domains of skills or competence you need, right? One domain of competence is pure technologies. You need to understand the technologies that are pertinent to your organization, your team, your context, right? The second thing is you need to understand the portfolio of techniques that are relevant in the cloud world, right? So it's design thinking, it's about DevOps, it's about understanding pipelines, it's understanding the whole tool chain, etc., right through to the site reliability engineering, or making sure the service is alive and the service delivery. So that understanding the whole life cycle of design, build, run, and sunset is kind of key to it. And then as we all alluded to, it's a set of personal skills. It's about leadership skills. It's about having the right kind of communication skills. It's about having critical thinking. It's about problem solving. There's a whole plethora of personal skills that need to be laid out. And one of the great things is that there is a fantastic framework for this, and it's called SFIA, the skills framework for the information era and information age rather, and that actually is something that is incredibly valuable. You can go and look at that and use that as a guide to where you are today in your skills capabilities, where you might want to be to achieve a particular role, and where the sort of pathways are for you. And as a BCS member, you have access to that, so you can go and use the kind of tools that are available in my BCS to go and help you do that. And you just have to Google something like DevOps engineer and BCS, and you'll see there's a whole bunch of guidance for you as papers have been produced. So there's tons of material to help you do that. But it does come back to understanding who you are. And the advice I always give to everybody is, yeah, there's a million different things that you could do, but you should do the things that play to your strengths. We're in a hyper competitive world. Those that survive are the ones that know what they're good at. They've learned how to learn, because this is an ever-changing game. And what you might learn today will not be relevant in a short period of time in the future. So you've got to constantly be able to pick up new skills and move forward. So learn to learn, play to your strengths, and focus on things that get you up in the morning rather than things that make you worry at night. And if you pick up those three kind of core traits, you can be very successful in this cloud world and have a really fun time.
Wonderful, lovely, and interesting actually, sort of actually how sort of human those answers are. You know, I thinking about how we were going to approach this, I'd imagine it was all going to be very quite kind of focusing very much on the engineering, but it's interesting for you to talk about the kind of things that get people up in the morning. So maybe Paul, what's your advice for somebody who enjoys the kind of the nuts and bolts of engineering?
I couldn't agree with what Rashik said anymore around this concept of learning to learn, because as an engineer myself, what gets me out of bed in the morning is this idea that I'm going to be doing something new and exciting today, right? And I get to build something new, I get to learn something new, I get to play with a new service or a new toy or whatever it might be, right? So somebody who enjoys this engineering side of things, cloud is like a playground for this. And I know Rashik and I, we haven't spoken about this before at all, but actually the SFIA framework has really helped me, and it's something that's just such a useful tool, even in a company like as large as Google, where we have our own performance metrics, we have our own sort of promotion styles and that sort of thing. But being able to follow something so structured like the SFIA framework gives me the ability to structure my own thoughts, because I'm the sort of person that wants to jump around and play with lots of different things and find all the new and exciting stuff, which is fine. But how is that progressing me? How is that actually going to take me to the next step in my career? And I want to keep doing that making and doing side of things. That's not excluded just because I'm following some framework or something like that, right? It's there to guide me in professional development. It's not giving me exact step by step, you must do this today, then this tomorrow. It gives me that freedom, which really satisfies my engineering side, and that my side that just wants to go and click on that new button that's appeared in cloud this week and give it a try. So the advice I give is to not lose that inquisitiveness and that excitement that you get from the new things that you see come out, and actually learn about them, become the expert in your team, become the expert in your company, whatever it might be. And then next week when something else new comes out, learn about that. Maybe the two merge together quite well. Maybe they're opposing ways of doing something. You know, that's the inquisitive side of engineers that I think is really satisfied by cloud.
Lovely, really, really nice, really, really lovely to hear. Christine, what's your take?
Well, I mean, I think stay curious is, you know, really important, but also be resilient, right? You know, because not everybody takes to cloud straight away. You know, I've had to deal with people that have said, oh no, it'll never work and all the rest of it. But we can be inventive there as well, right? You know, and I can remember doing literally a bake-off between on-prem and cloud, you know, to literally show somebody how it could be done and how good it was. So I think staying resilient. And the other thing I would say is be data-driven, right? You know, because, you know, just understanding how cloud contributes, the cost basis for it, you know, those are the things that people will always listen to. And even when you're trying to prove to somebody, well, actually, if we did this a different way, this is what could happen as a result. So I think as well as staying curious, being resilient, because sometimes, you know, we do have to prove these things, and also data driven, and, you know, just thinking about the business case, because it's new and maybe it's subscription based. Sometimes it doesn't mean that we don't need to think about business cases and those types of things. So as well as the learning and the curiosity, there's also this business base wrapped around it as well that is just crucial. Yeah.
Brilliant job. Thank you very much. So we've talked about you know, cloud for engineers and people who enjoy that, excited by the making and doing. What about stepping up into a leadership role? I mean, what's your advice? Maybe you'd like to take us a lead on this one as well, Christine, actually. Your advice to somebody who's stepping up into a leadership role?
Well, I think that's really interesting. I think it's really interesting for a lot of the reasons we've talked about. You know, leadership now more than ever is certainly not about doing the same things all the time. You know, it's harder, I think. You know, there is the desire to be more progressive, but at the same time, maybe start to reduce your operating costs, for example. So somebody stepping up to leadership, no matter what level you are or what type of cloud use case, let's call it that you're thinking about, it is about creating a vision. And even if that vision is 12 months out, a couple of quarters out, it doesn't matter. It is about having a clear direction where you want to get to. And it's about taking people with you, you know, as Paul was just talking about. You might have people in your team that see cloud a different way. So it's about how do you unify that and help them to help you get where you want to be as well. So some of the old things are still relevant, thinking about what I'm saying as well, you know, so it is about taking people with you. I think the point we made about the framework, and, you know, one of the things that I've done in my organization is really looked hard at scrubbing what we called the job architecture. It's basically, you know, SFIA, and helping people understand where they are in the team, where they need to go next, what they need to do to step up, what they need to do to create value. Super important. But, you know, the thing that you can never get away from is going out and noodling with business folks and building the relationship, having that relationship management, and having a story as part of your vision and what you're trying to do that isn't about cloud. It's actually about how does cloud relate to supply chain, your warehouses, you know, the product that you're about to launch next week, or the next critical event, whether that's a shareholder meeting or Black Friday or Christmas. So it's about helping your team to turn what they're doing into business outcomes and being business relevant. One of the things I do all the time, and I love doing it, is writing to my team every quarter, every year, whatever, about these are the things we did this year. And I think that leadership more than ever needs that, because we need people to not just deliver the day-to-day, but deliver the day-to-day in the context of the fact that the day-to-day is changing and under pressure more than ever.
Brilliant job. Thanks very much. Creating a vision. I think that was the thing I wrote down on my notepad.
Yeah, it still works.
Yeah, it's interesting. Again, it's tying back to those basic principles, those kind of old existing ideas that you talked about earlier. Rashik, stepping up to leadership.
Yeah, so Martin, the way I think about this is leaders can get appointed, but that doesn't mean that people will follow them. Right? People choose who they want to follow because, as Christine said there, they have a vision, they have a clarity of how to make that viable. So it's about lighting that blue touch of excitement in somebody, and giving them the confidence that this is doable, and when it's done, it'll create the stories that will excite people. And I want to take the question that anonymous attendee said, which is, what's the path and qualifications required to become a cloud architect? And what I would say there is, it go back to the three things that I said earlier. It's about understanding the portfolio of technologies that exist, because ultimately, when you draw a picture saying this is the flow of the cloud, you've got to understand what the implications are of the boxes you're drawing and the lines that you're about to make connections to, and making sure that you understand the reality of the implications of those lines and drawings, and then have the wherewithal to understand the kind of processes and the program structure that would make that possible. So guide the project, the program team to go make that happen, and then ultimately have the leadership skills to inspire people to come along on this journey, be able to articulate the potential business outcomes and the opportunity that it creates, and how it helps us make IT good for society, which is what we kind of talk about in the BCS, right? And it really comes back to that kind of opportunity to inspire, motivate, engage, right?
Brilliant job. Yeah, lovely answers. And I don't know whether you've anything you'd like to sort of add to that idea of the sort of model or concept of leadership, Paul.
Rashik and Christine covered it admirably. The only thing that I would add is that the one thing that I've always appreciated in leaders around this sort of area is actually listening to the team members as well, right? So not just setting out this vision, which is what I want my leaders to do, right? I want them to set out the vision, but then I want them to listen to me when I say, okay, here's how we could do that. And this is where it comes down to becoming the expert in these individual fields. So my specialist area is infrastructure, for example. If you come to me and talk to me about data, that's not my area. But if someone comes to me and says, my vision is that we will create this data pipeline that integrates all of these different things and whatever it might be, I could talk for days about how we could do that infrastructure wise, right? And so that's what I want my leaders to be able to do, is to listen to those that actually have the passion, that have the energy to actually go and do the thing with cloud, to find the right tool, and to allow the team to take their vision forward with them. So yeah, that's all I'd add on that.
Really nice, really nice. It's difficult for you guys, I think, being the last person in the list of people we kind of come to for each question. I think there's sort of not much left, but no, really nice answers. So let's change gear. Let's talk about CPD, keeping relevant. So looking as a cloud practitioner, how can we stay relevant? What should we be focusing on? And maybe Rashik, you can lead us on this one.
Yeah, I think it starts with the whole learn to learn piece, right? So you've got to stay just that little bit ahead. Don't go too far into the future of the art of the impossible, and stay relevant in what's possible in the near term. Think about the kind of business outcomes that you want to deliver in your business context. Think about what would good look like in your business context, and then focus on CPD that's relevant, that's interesting, and ignites your inner curiosity, is something that's fresh and new for you. Just because it's not fresh and new for somebody else doesn't mean that it's not fresh and new for you. So that's what personal development's all about, right? You don't have to pick up the new shiny glitter of everybody else has had. It's new shiny glitter that you care about because it's nice and shiny for you, right? And then think about why you do these things, right? We all have a set of experiences of things that we care about, and do those, because they're the things that make it worthwhile. There's a great book called Contagious from a chap called Jona Berger, and he talks about how ideas become contagious, and they become contagious because they ultimately become stories. And I think we had stories multiple times in this conversation. because actually being human is to be able to tell stories. And we all want to create projects and outcomes that will become the stories of the future. So think about the stories you want to tell and work back from that.
Lovely, really, really, really nice. Lovely, lovely answer. Paul, what's your take on CPD?
I'm just going to repeat the learn to learn side of things, right? And this concept of curiosity and this concept of being interested in what's happening, staying that, it doesn't even have to be one step ahead, just staying that half step ahead so you can look back and say, this is what we're doing really well right now. Here's what is coming. Is this something I need to spend a little time looking into, spend a lot of time looking into, or is this something that can actually pass me by right now because it's not directly relevant to anything I can see in the future right now? I think a key example of this would be something like quantum computing, right? Super interesting, super exciting. I can't apply that to my day job. So it's not something that I'm seeking out and learning on, but it's something that I sort of keep in my periphery vision because it interests me. And that's exciting and that's interesting. And that allows me to sort of keep interested and excited about the more mundane day-to-day stuff that I do, right? Around cloud infrastructure, around that sort of thing. So focus on what gives you that drive, but stay relevant by keeping an eye on what else is going on. And just, that might be reading Hacker News. That might be taking a look at the BCS news pages, the blogs, the listening to these webinars, that sort of thing, right? However you choose to just keep that little bit informed, will just keep that curiosity going. And that will then drive you into this CPD cycle, as it were, into this pathway for CPD, because you'll find where your passions lie and you'll find what you actually want to develop on, as opposed to what you're forced into developing on, which is always, I think we've all sat in lectures or whatever it might be that we just did not want to be there. And how much of that sinks in compared to something where you really wanted to be there.
Lovely. Thank you for the plug as well. The BCS blogs, of course, IT Now, BCS's magazine, which I may or may not be involved with, is of course available to all members. Christine, over to you. CPD.
CPD. and another plug for the BCS, you know, there's the books, and you know, you can pay so much a year now and get access to all the books. And I was looking at them the other day, and there's a fantastic range of topics that's built up over the years, and there's some really exciting titles you know, due to be published. So that's a good source as well, is one thing I would say. I noticed in the chat there was a question about what to suggest to somebody who's learning cybersecurity. What kind of qualifications should they pursue regarding cloud security? And I think it's a good plug for certifications, because I think certifications are still important and they do have their place. And, you know, as well as the BCS, there's also the information security, ISC squared, you know, and they have specific certifications for cloud and for cloud capabilities. So that's one thing I would certainly look at. I mean, CPD in itself has got many aspects to it. There's learning on the job. So it is about asking for projects or asking to shadow somebody, which is something I'm always a big fan of. I'll always send folks out, so-and-so's working on a project, why don't you go and spend a day with them? You know, so that's also a great way to not just understand what others do, but find your passion as well, is one thing I would say. But, you know, for things like cloud security, you know, it's about staying a step ahead, like we were just talking. So, you know, networking and finding out what are other people doing. Things like ransomware, business continuity, all of those things still matter in the cloud, and they're important for businesses. So actually spending half a day, maybe a Friday afternoon, thinking to yourself, well, what are the things that are going to impact our business in the next 6 to 12 months? And then maybe asking, how could I incorporate that, not just in my day-to-day, but maybe through job shadowing and networking, thinking about topics I could perhaps talk to some of the senior managers about, you know, and get people's point of view in your firm, are all different ways to start to think about how you can, and I don't want to overuse the term, but, you know, contribute and add value. I think the other thing to think about is linking some of your career development to the purpose of your company. You know, many people are very keen on ESG at the moment, the environmental and social and governance. Now, thinking about that, you could think, well, a career in cloud could help us to be nice to the environment. It could help the company to be more charitable. It could help the company to be really central to its purpose. And if your purpose is about helping customers, for example, one of the things that we've just been doing is we've been looking at certifications, because if we're certified, it helps our customers have confidence in our products. So I think there's more to do in this area than you might think initially. And I think it's worth just cutting yourself out a couple of hours in the day to just really think about it and talk to others in your organization and outside your organization. The other thing I'd say is we do have a tendency sometimes with cloud to stick with certain brands, you know, Amazon, Google, all of those. And what I would say to folk as well is think through what the next big thing's going to be, which is multi-cloud and how to manage it. And ask yourself, well, actually, have I spent a bit too long on one particular cloud brand or on one particular cloud technique, on-prem versus hybrid versus SaaS? And mix and match and try and complement your experiences with some of those different aspects is what I would say.
Fantastic, really, really good. Thank you very much. So I'm just moving, sort of changing gear again. I think I kind of look at BCS and think about us as an organization, and we have so many kind of points of influence really across the whole arc of IT careers. And I think in this webinar, we talked about the kind of the midpoint of people's careers, stepping up to leadership. But I'd like to sort of reverse or go right back to sort of early days, really, and almost back to the classroom. And we, as an organisation, do a lot of work with you know, early learning with the national curriculum. And how early does the panel think, or maybe Paul, how early do you think we should really start talking and kind of educating or bringing the idea of cloud into sort of children's lives?
So maybe I'll start with that one, Martin. I think the BCS really campaigned to create a new cloud, in fact, a new computing curriculum. England now leads the world in having a computing curriculum that's in every maintained school in the country, where young people learn computer science, IT, and digital literacy from 5 to 16, right? And we champion that investment in teacher training. And you know, we're delighted that we're able to establish the National Centre for Computing with the support of about £84 million of government investment. And you might say, well, what's that actually done? Well, the national centres have supported more than 18,500 secondary school computing teachers to become competent and capable in teaching. We reckon over 120,000, 150,000 young people become digitally literate and ready for the future. And if you think about the reality of where we live, I said it, you know, IT is like glitter. Let's just come back to the reality. You can't go to a tap and turn it on and expect it to let water run without some form of IT behind it making that water flow. You can't go to the supermarket and buy an apple without some form of technology, right? And those are kind of fundamentally, water and food are kind of fundamental to human life. And technology makes that possible today. So we need to ensure that everybody is ready to be able to work and play and contribute to that digital society. And so how we do that is something that we have to lead the way on. And I think age 5 is actually the right age to start building digital literacy. And in fact, the other end of the spectrum is we also need the retired to be able to contribute to that as well. And that's where we're also playing. So part of the BCS mission is, as we say, make IT good for society. And that means that there is nobody left behind. That's part of what we're trying to do here.
Brilliant job, thank you. I've just noticed actually, and this is one an aside for you, Christine, that somebody said in the chat that they've been pronouncing the name of the organisation for which you work incorrectly for 20 years. Can you, for the record, set the record straight, and how should you pronounce your company's name?
SuSe.
Brilliant job. Thank you. Well, we're running a little bit short of time, so what I'll do is I'll actually we'll skip on to the next question. So think about IT roles. Which IT roles do you think will cease to exist in the future? Will AI replace jobs? And also, what advice would you give to somebody looking to change careers? So Rashik, maybe you can give us a kind of quick overview of that. Jobs that will change, changing careers.
So I think roles will continually change because aspects of what we do will be automated and digitized. And the nature of humanity is that we always find things that need to be done above and beyond that. So what is really happening is the routine aspects of daily life, daily work, daily projects are being automated through cloud technologies. But that's allowing us to focus on all the things that we wish we could do and should do, and therefore that spectrum of stuff to be done is ever increasing at a phenomenal pace. So there's a need for people to design the next era of digitizing solutions. There's careers for running those complex digitization platforms, and there's a whole spectrum in between that. So I don't see roles being replaced per se, but I see roles continually evolving to sit above the line of commoditization that we talk about from digitization.
Brilliant job. Christine, roles that may change, disappear?
I mean, I'm in the same camp as Rashik, really. I think there's this cycle. There was always a cycle of continuous improvement. And there's always been a cycle of being data-driven about continuous improvement. And I think, that none of that goes away. So even if your job was XYZ today and a tool comes in to automate it, then it's about, well, where does the process go next? And what do I now need to focus on? And I call it shifting right to shift left. So it's about thinking a year ahead, thinking about where you want to be, maybe prototyping that, then improving it, commoditizing it. So you've gone from the right to the left, and then you go back around the right again. And I kind of think that process just carries on. In terms of jobs that go away, I don't think any go away, really. I think what becomes very important is skills, and really honing our skills, like analytical skills, based on what Rashik just said, as important now, if not more important, right? Scenario planning skills. So I think that's where I get to with it. I do think that the way things are automating does enable people to move to adjacent careers. And I think that helping people to understand where there are adjacencies for them. So if you were an infrastructure analyst, just for argument's sake, and now it's infrastructure as a code, for example, then you could very easily transition to a multi-cloud analyst type of thing. So I think it's really important to think through skill adjacencies. Yes, processes are commoditizing, but also the standards moving up. So that means we have to move with that. But at the same time, the value to the organization goes up, right? So yeah, I don't think much goes away, really. I think it's just about getting smarter, about doing more, doing it better for less. And in this complex business world that we're now operating in.
Brilliant job. Thank you very much. Paul, have you anything to add to those observations?
I'm yet to find a role that hasn't molded and evolved into the space of cloud in the years that I've been doing consulting, right? There isn't one that I've found so far. Everything from service desk analysts, data entry teams, data analysts, infrastructure specialists, systems administrators, even data center technicians, right? Where you think, well, we're getting rid of our data center. How is that beneficial to a data center technician? Well, maybe that company doesn't have that role anymore, but you know how all of this works, and cloud providers need that expertise to actually manage these massive data centers that actually do all of this. So I'm yet to find a role that goes away with cloud. And it's all about, as Christine said, as Rashik said, adapting, evolving, learning, and applying the skills that you have to these new and innovative ways of doing things.
Brilliant job. Thank you very much. So I think we've got a few minutes left just to sort of mop up the final questions, I think, from the floor. It looks like we've got 2 outstanding ones. So by simplifying the data centers into cloud for all the benefits, including cost, main factor, and providing as many capabilities within the cloud, is the evolution of cloud becoming complicated? So is cloud becoming too complicated?
Yes, next.
Next. Really like to make that answer a little more complicated and elaborate, Rashik.
What's actually happening is we go through this cycle of complicating, simplifying, complicating, simplifying, and that cycle will continue forever and ever. So as long as we can have a brain full of stuff we can do, we will continue to do that. Once things start falling out of the brain, we'll find new ways of making it understandable by simplifying, and then it'll keep getting more complicated until we start to simplify again.
Brilliant job. Thank you very much. And I think the final question we have here is, do you think most businesses will only adopt to a hybrid cloud model, or talk about the business operations and infrastructure into the cloud in the future? So let's see.
Let me take that. Let me take that. Right. So, what's happening is this notion of the rising line of commodity, right? So everybody wants to stay on the side of commodity which gets you maximum value. Once you get into the commoditizing part of the world, you're on this declining cost curve, constantly reducing costs, reducing price, reducing value, and you have to get out of that, right? So businesses will want to stay at a point where they are profitable, they're delivering value to the customers in a way which is meaningful and appropriate, right? So that will mean that most businesses will have some element of cloud-based stuff, whatever that stuff is that they will use. Will everything go to the cloud? No. There will always be things that are non-cloud, the edge. There'll be some applications that are unique and special that they'll want to protect and put their arms around and put into a machine in a data center somewhere because that's critical to them. And there may be some businesses which is totally cloud-based, and that's fine. But there'll be elements of non-cloud in businesses for a long time to come.
Brilliant job. Thank you very much. Well, I think we've got a couple of minutes left, so we'll just sort of close that with with our thanks to the panelists, and maybe just to each of you in turn, really, just reflecting on your own careers. What do you wish you understood earlier? If you'd done anything, what would you do differently? What do you wish you'd understand earlier in your kind of your tech, your cloud career? So maybe Paul.
I knew you'd come to me first, and I don't have an answer prepared. What would I have done differently in cloud or tech? So broadened my horizons faster. So when I started out in cloud, I started out with one particular vendor of cloud, and sort of focused a lot of effort and energy into that. At the time, that wasn't a bad thing for me, but what it has taken me some time to do is to adapt myself to other vendors as I've needed to use them. And so this concept of multi-cloud and hybrid cloud is where industry is going, and quite rightly so. And so looking beyond my own sort of laser focus and having that peripheral vision as to what's going on around it is something that I wish I'd done 2 years ago, because then I'd be 2 years ahead of where I am sort of now, if that makes sense.
Brilliant job. Christine?
Well, I think a lot of us think that there's only us can do certain things, right? And I think that what the cloud and the toolbox approach and some of the things we've been talking about, innovation, is that it's okay to think like an ecosystem, and I think that it's bold to be able to think like that. And I think that probably if I'd certainly thought more like an ecosystem years earlier, then who knows what I might have done. But that's what I would say. Think like an ecosystem earlier.
Brilliant job. Finally, Rashik.
I think Christine's words can turn into a song. I think it was think like an Egyptian, but could we come think like an ecosystem? I think, well, that's for another day. But my thing would be, you only know what you know. And so having mentors around you are fundamentally important. And I think about mentoring in three ways. One is a mentor that helps you be the best you can be in your current job. Second is a mentor that can help you be ready for your next career step and help you think through that career progression. And then a mentor who thinks about you as a career and what that career could look like and provides you the guidance and the path forward. So remember that you only know what you know, and mentors are critically important for us to be the best we can be.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. I think reflecting on what I wish I'd known earlier, I wish I brought a bigger piece of paper and had better handwriting to create a summary for all of this. But I think we can agree that we work in a fantastic industry. The opportunities are boundless, but really the thing that's wrung out, and I've written down many times, is learning to learn. There are so many great opportunities, so many great technologies, and there are so many great technologies that are coming our way. So keep that passion living. I've also written glitter down quite a lot, but I'm not entirely sure why. But thank you very much to our panelists. Maybe just hand back to you, darling, for a final word.
Great, thank you very much. And wow, wasn't that fantastic? And Martin, with his smooth comparing throughout. David has been in the background waiting to get his technical hands on the results of this. The video and so on will come out in due course. But I'm just lost in admiration in terms of the skills of Christine, Paul, and Rashik, just 3 members of our wonderful BCS FTAG, which stands for the Fellows Technical Advisory Group. And there are many more of them. We hear some things from them sometimes. They're all fellows of the BCS. Perhaps you should be as well, if you're not already. And there are many more members of the FTAG. There are more than 24 of them. And hopefully we'll be able to do much more and learn much more from them. A couple of extra words from me to you. In terms of your journey with cloud, there are lots of breadcrumbs that have been dropped there, aren't there? And there are lots of opportunities. Obviously, cloud is old, but it's also new. It's as new or old as you are. So if you want to seize the opportunity, it sounds to me like, from what Christine, Paul, and Rashik have said, it is an ideal time for you to learn more, apply yourself, and get into cloud. It's tomorrow's technology, but it's based on all the principles of yesterday with the skills of today. Hey, this is your field. Why not get into it? I'll just name drop a few more qualifications and certifications that I know about. I mean, there are, subjects that are coming up like cloud asset management. What is that? Well, it might be your prerogative to help to define it. Why not jump in there and do that? There are things like the CSA, the Cloud Security Alliance, and they are they include some major organizations, guess what, focused on cloud security. So maybe that's something that might be of interest to you. Obviously, infrastructure, etc. But also there are certifications like CCAK, the Certificate of Cloud Auditing Knowledge. So there's another line as well. If you're into auditing or finding out about organizations and what they do, and then leveraging that, CCAK is a certification that's good for that. So lots and lots of possibilities. The BCS has a wealth of expertise. You've seen just a little glimmer of it this evening, but what a glimmer. Come and join us at more things. Come and join us at Cloud 3 on December the 7th. And let's all move forward together and help make IT good for society. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody. Well, I think it falls to me to end the session. So thank you again to the panelists. Thank you to Darlin. Thank you for David as well. And thank you for the audience. So have a good evening, everybody. Thank you very much.